Hello, hello. Just coming on Friday afternoon for me. I have not been able to do any broadcasting lately, but thought I'd come on and just check in with the Howie Shanks Bingo League progress and share a recent test that I just ran. Also, talk about some of the files we might still be missing, as I've got mine drilled down to 25 teams. I've got a few teams here that still need to get their manager files or let us know who's inactive. So see who's going to join us today and go over that. Hey, midlife crisis. Yes, been a long time. Unfortunately, sometimes real life and work gets in the way of the sim life and work. But just thought I'd give an update on what I have and what we might still be needing. So I've got PQ who I'm going to help with some deactivations to get his down to 25 because I know PQ is entertaining some guests and he's going to be away for a while. Rob Tomlinson in Des Moines, I updated his file, so he's down to 25. Beatles, I don't have any 5 inactive yet for him or an updated manager file, nor for Robbie. And Robbie is still missing one player because he still owes us, I think it's a player from 1920 or 25 we haven't had a response from. Don't have 5 for Todd yet for Cleveland. Manchester has their 5 drilled down. Uh, D. Scott, I don't have his 5 yet, so I might correct me, D. Scott, if you've sent it and I don't have it. Hawaii, I think I have theirs, and interesting enough for Lawrence, he was doing really well in our sims, and then all of a sudden he sent a file in and they weren't doing so well. So this is a test file that I ran that is showing his team with the computer recommended stuff, and he did a little bit better. I don't seem to have big clues, so we're missing probably half the league's manager files, or at least information on how to drill down. So let me go back here and just take a look at see if anything's different on mine. So I've got mine set. Big Clue still need his 5, so if I'm missing that, MV's good. So Big Clue, Todd, D. Scott, um, Lawrence, Beatles, Robbie. Yep, Robbie. They need a little tending to. So Des Moines, I've got Rob's in here, and I went ahead and I will be taking care of PQ. So yeah, we've got some stuff to do, guys. I had a post in here. Oh, the lack of sleep hanging with Beals. Yeah, midlife. I think sometimes the nice thing for me is being 2 hours behind him is good. So if he's up to 2, 3 in the morning, it's really only 12 or 1 my time at the latest. So I was always able to kind of tune in and talk through it um, and be a couple hours to the better being west. So that was always good. But I would say I saw some posts here in the Baseball Geek Squad channel here for the league. I posted one yesterday, an updated file. I'm posting the files right where it says Bingo, Shanks Bingo Draft League. I know there's been some comments in welcome. Beatles was asking where the latest file is. I posted one yesterday, but you got to click on the channel Shanks Bingo Draft. Some people under game files and that have MV gave me his Manchester file. I look through here to see sometimes people are posting their manager files in different channels. I dig through here and I think I've applied everything. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to take the bingo league here, zip the most current file, and I might want to just clean this so I don't have to. I did do a trial run like I typically do. 810 games. Let's delete them all so I don't have to include those with the zip. And I will post the most current one. So here's a zip. I'm just going to call it bingo, and I'm going to name it 5523. Zip it, and I will post that into our Discord, and it's posting under Shanks Bingo Draft League again. And let me find today's. And I'm just going to put in there, I still need a bunch of manager files or info on their final 25-man rosters. So yeah, I think we can get rolling. I mean, I think we're close to getting rolling on starting to play some of these league games, but not till we get the information. I think Big Clue put out a reminder saying, hey, Saturday, which is tomorrow night by like midnight Eastern or whatever, let's get that done as a deadline to roll. Um, so we can get cranking out some games. Yeah, so I apologize. I have not been around due to work related stuff the last several days and haven't had a chance to really tune in. Yesterday, I was able to make some of the moves with the trades should be reflected on this one. I know we had a Koufax for Marichal trade and Maris for somebody. So please take a look at those files and see what's available. But we can get rolling on it. And I am looking forward to just focusing on playing some baseball games. Actually, be kind of fun to do that. And Midlife has said he's rolling a Dwayne Kuiper project. Nice. Speaking of the Sixers, Midlife, let me show you a little something that I'm doing to entertain myself because I'll go in these spurts. This is a long time, like 5 months I've spent here, 5 to 6 months dedicated on baseball. Um, but I'm rotating back over. I just got the 2022 basketball upgrade from Action. I'd held off on that for about 6 months. And I am finally starting to build out a project that I've been wanting to do, which was I'd done the decade files where I take, players' best 3 straight years in a decade. I did the 5-year franchise approach where I take a 5-year run for a franchise and then find a player and take their best 2 straight years with that. But the one thing that I wanted to do in both baseball and basketball was taking what I call my peak, which is just pick the best 3 seasons as selected by me and average out a player's card based on their best 3 for their career and card them for that. And then take an average of those 3 years. Let's say it's 1960, 65, and 68, right? I would add all those up. It comes out to a 3. So I think that would average out, see, 5, 8. I'm going to confuse myself. Take 60, 65, and 68, and maybe I average it out and I say those years come out to 1964. So I'll take their stats added up for all those 3 years. And then since they're assigned to 64, I'll go to my era chart and fine tune them into reflecting the pace of play and the era for 64, if that makes sense. So it requires a little bit of computation, but it enables me then to have a greats league with them having all the years I've used normalized over towards the year they're based in. So hopefully that makes sense to others than just me, but I can give you a little glimpse shot. I've got tons of era data on this sheet that tells me every number I need to know for every era. So if I'm going to blend them to 1964, I'll look over here and see how many field goals attempts per game, what I call a lot of the pace of play stuff, turnovers and that, and fine tune them so that all their stats get funneled down into that year that they're assigned. So having some fun with that. And let me pull my, well, I shouldn't say having fun. I haven't had a chance. About a week ago, I started messing with it again. I've actually got a lot of the data done and just have started building some players and messing around with photo packs. So Speaking of the Sixers, you'll see I've only got 10 players built in here, and 3 of them are Sixers with Irving and Andrew, Tony, and Cheeks. And we can take a peek at the roster, for example, and you can see Irving's based on 78. What I'm using for Irving is I'm using 1 ABA year and 2 of his Sixer years. I think that's also the case for Rick Barry, who I haven't carded yet. He's got like a 1966 with the Warriors, 71 with the Nets, and then I think it's 74 again with the Warriors. Those are the 3 seasons that are getting average. But we take a look at Dr. J here. And you can see I've been working on cards that kind of fit what I was doing for the Negro League greats and the all-time baseball greats. And I've got an ABA. So if we look at Irving, I'll give you an example here. See if anybody finds this interesting besides me. You'll look here at Irving, I've got some card options. So you can see down here, I've got an NBA logo for the NBA seasons where he's with the Sixers, and then I've got a couple options here. If I sign this photo, you can see I've got the ABA logo for a couple photo options I have where he was with the Nets and so on. So anyway, going to try to provide some photo options for this. Tony, I've got 3 different photos for him. Mo Cheeks. The other thing I've done with these is I've added a logo for Hall of Famers. I thought about doing that a while back, and I finally took the time to figure out what format I wanted to use. So let me go into, here's some of the formatting I'm using. So here's for basketball greats. You can see this is what they look like. So I've got a few done here. This is Dantley. I've got like 4 different photos for him. And if they're Hall of Fame, I can drop that Hall of Fame depending on which side based on the photo I'm using makes sense. So it's kind of like creating my own, what am I calling here? My own format, right? For like doing a baseball or basketball card. Here's Bob Lanier. I've got Lanier and trying to get 3 or 4 photos of each. Dave Bing cards here. Isaiah. Got Havlicek and Bird for Boston. Here's Dr. J's cards. Yeah, here's Larry Bird. Got a few for him. Cheeks. Pistol Pete. So having some fun with that. And trying to make sure that as I try to get these cards done, I'm pacing myself to make sure that I've got, as I get the stats and as I build them in the game, that I go ahead and get the cards done so I can kind of bring the project along step by step. So I've got a completed approach. So having fun with it. So Mick F is here. I've got Midlife Crisis. I think just us hanging out. So yeah, Barry had a good year in '74. And Mick's saying baseball all-time greats with 3 best years is going to be wildly popular. Yeah, I think so too. I can pull that one up too. That's the process I was using for the Negro League greats. So with baseball, I had started to do a comparison file using the 3-year as selected by me. Let me take a look at where this at. What did I call that? I'll have to find it. Oh, MLB greats right here. I started building some out. So you can see that I've got some done. So I've got Williams over here. I was starting to bring them in with, I don't know why they're not folding under that, shown under database. There we go. So these are the 50 batters I've got in here built. And you can see if I select it by OP, I haven't built Ruth yet, but these are the stats based on those best 3 years. And again, normalizing it. So if I'm using Gehrig in 34, maybe I'm using 27, 36, and 34. And if I pick, say, 33 as his base year, the average of those years, then I'm going to take all the stats from those different years and then neutralize them all towards that base year I'm using. So it requires doing a little bit of normalization outside. But then when they're carded, then towards that 1 year, then the game can do what it needs to do. That makes sense. I'm also incorporating removing ballpark factors too. So I did a lot of this before we started doing the Howie Shanks League, and then I stopped. And every time I do one of these projects, I always like being able to rotate between the different sports. When you get tired or bored, then I'll roll over and crunch a bunch. And this is the longest I've stayed on baseball. Um, because I was doing a lot of the 5 year franchise build outs and then rolled it, found Beatles channel, then rolled into these ideas and then the Negro League set. Man, I've been like for the last 6 months, head down. I'm getting burnt on baseball. And what I'm looking forward is let's get this league kicked off and actually just start having some fun playing the games. And then I can get my research kicks out of going back to some of the other stuff like my basketball project. So what else have I got rolling here? So that will be fun stuff this weekend. Maybe if I get a chance. I got a lot of chores going on, but definitely having fun with this. The other thing, if I go back to some of the files I had for basketball, I'm trying to think the other ones. I found them the other day. I've got a 70s franchise best. And what this is to qualify, you had to play for that franchise. But let's take a look at Philadelphia, for example. Here's their roster. This will be based on their best 3 straight years. So I guaranteed if you're looking at Fred Carter, that's 72, 73, and 74. And since basketball goes from 1 year into the other, 1970 would be 70, 71 season. And 76 would actually be the 76, 77 season. Action uses the year that the season started to indicate it. And I pretty much stick with that as well. This was the approach. I built this file several years ago. I haven't done a whole lot of work on it. Well, I say it took a lot of work, but basketball I enjoy doing compared to baseball and football because the roster size is much more manageable. So let's see. We've got 80s, I think I started as well. Let me pull up 1980s. That was also a franchise file I was working on. Let's see, 1126B. I'm just trying to look at my most recent because I was doing a lot of. So this would have been a 1980s based on their best 3 straight years, or it might have been their best 3 years during that decade. I'd have to go back and look at my approach. Here's a Philly team back then again for the 80s. So I had a lot of fun. Yeah, no neutral year for action, although with basketball, it's a little easier in some ways because they give you more options on style. In baseball, you have to say in baseball, we're going to play the historical average, whatever that is. I guess we could add up all the years ever in the history of baseball because that's what they do in action. And whatever that adds up to, that's the average, league average you're playing in or the era. Or you can pick in baseball, let the batter and pitcher, the two eras they come from, let those two eras be averaged. Okay. Um, or you can pick a specific AL or NL season. The one nice thing about basketball I like is if we go into eras, I can come in here. They got the nice separate for college. I can choose, I have all the era information here, right? So I have all the single data that I can get. And if I want to set up a league for rules, Where's my league? Right here under game era. I like this. So I can do blended offensive defense, which is really um, similar to baseball, right? It's letting the matchups determine. It's a blend of the offense and the defense. So if I took the 1965 Celtics and their era and I'm playing against the 1989 Bulls, it's taking both the era informations they come from and just averaging them out to a combo era. You can also get the average historical era and assign them to, just like in baseball, for a league. But what I like, and I wish baseball had this, you could go right to decades. So I could choose to play 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or 2000s. So you've got some extra options that you don't have in baseball. Um, I wish baseball had that. And I can't remember if I let Dave know that when I submitted some stuff or not, where I was wanting to be able to custom. You can create some custom eras in there yourself, which could be done, where I was going to go in there and select, for example, like an average of the 1910s NL or 1900s or whatever. You could do it, but I didn't think you could assign a league to those like you can here in basketball. So a lot of times when I have these all-time greats things, like definitely for the 80s, if I'm playing that 80s all-time greats, I would select the 80s, just what I would choose to play it in. If you've got something where people are all over, like my 5-year franchises where they're coming from the 60s and 50s and 2000s, everything, I've always selected just average historical era to play it in. But I could still choose to play that in a specific style of basketball. So basketball, similar in some ways, but a little bit different with the era. Um, I changed my determinant when and my stats were way up. Yeah, if you're playing a replay, the same thing in baseball. If you're playing a replay, this I mean, that's what makes the most sense. That's what that means. If you are, because it's going to blend both eras together. Well, since the teams are all coming from the same universe, is the way I like to put it. It's already done for you. So that's exactly how it should be. So yeah, I'm looking at some of these franchise best I've done. Let's see, the 5-year franchise file for basketball here. I stopped after so many teams. I got all these teams done. There's a fun team, Cleveland in the 70s with Campy Russell and Austin Carr and a Walt Frazier coming over here. So, I'd done some custom cards for these too, for these special that had the team colors and logos on them for this 5-year file. Let's take a look at the team. And you can see I'll take the middle year. So I'm taking the Cleveland from 74 to 76. I'll just select the middle of that run as their base year. But then when you go into the team and look at everybody like Bobby Smith here, it's probably better to look at them. Even though the team's set to 76, let's right click on, here's Nate Thurmond, modify him. And you can see that Nate Thurmond will be set to 75 because that's the middle year, or I think I'm using 2-year average, so I'll take the year of the two. So I might be using Nate Thurmond 74 and 75. And to decide which year to set the player to of those two, I would look at the one that they had the most games played or most minutes played to pick the two. So that was the approach with this one. This is all the stuff I enjoy doing as much as actually playing the game. But yeah, I'm really excited about this best 3-year approach. I had done one that was based on neutralized stats on career numbers. I don't even know if I could find it. It might be on another computer. That was one of the first things I ever did with basketball, and it was fun. But I thought I've never done this one where I'm just going to pick the best three and let those 3 years come from anywhere in their career. And the best thing I could come up with is a placeholder. I could create them all and just leave them to be free agents, like as a draft pool league, and I may have that option. But I thought as a starting point, when I build them into the game, I need to assign them to a team. So I'm going to put them on the team that they played the most out of those 3 years I'm using. So Chamberlain will be on the Warriors. I'm using two Irving seasons with the Sixers and one with the Nets. So of course I'm going to put him on the Sixers and like that. So and that way when somebody gets this file and I make it available, it's easy to go and scroll franchise by franchise. Let's go back to the 3 year one, and they can go, oh, here's the Pistons, and we know Lanier played. Why is that? That's looking rather odd. Let's let it reset. Crazy. Let me back out and come out. Seems like it's capturing some fields from a couple other seasons, and I think I know why. There we go. A little refresh there. So, Bob Lanier played later for the Bucks, but the majority come on one. I'm going to put it on that team, so it's easy to find. Yeah, I agree with the collecting. I'm probably satisfying now my baseball card collecting in my young years. It got me into loving sports so much. At the same time, I'm doing these homebrew what if projects that I love because I kind of moved on from doing exact season replays. I've done a lot of those in the last 25 years or so, and especially being able to get into computer gaming because of the ability to just simply play games I want with the team, let the computer autoplay the others, track stats, and everything has been great. So I've done a ton of different replays, like season replays. Now I'm really enjoying the what ifs of the creating some of these players and doing some of the research behind there, and then the window dressing in the game. So probably this weekend, I've got some data crunched here. Some of the players I'm ready to do. I've got Moses Malone from the Rockets, and really sticking to the era I know from the late '60s through the up to through the '80s. Players definitely will be the ones that I'll probably create first because that's the ones that I can relate to the most and have the most fun with. But one great player I just did earlier was Michael Ray Richardson with the Knicks and then the Nets. A lot of people forget about him in basketball, but just great defender and point guard, had size. Another, I guess, magic physique. Um, didn't have a very long career and had a lot of turbulent episodes in his career, but I just had kind of fun visiting that. Bill Walton, who's I look at and is in the Basketball Hall of Fame, whose NBA career is basically summed up with injuries and great role player when the Celtics won it all with that '86 team. But still fun to go back and look at that. Nate Tiny Archibald, I just rated this morning, did his years 71, 72, and 74, where he was with the Cincinnati, the Royals, later the Kansas City Kings. That was fun. So it's just kind of a nice trip down memory lane. And then also being able to create the cards that go with them and then figure out when we get them all normalized based on the year and in the game. It's still a little tricky because we might look at Adrian Dantley here, but you can see he's had all of his things, all of his numbers adjusted to 83, 84. So if we take somebody else like a Dave Bing, you've got to look at the era they're in. So what I like here about all Dave's games now is this era adjusted is great because Dave Bing's had his stuff by me adjusted to 71, 72, but you're looking at Dave Bing's 71, 72 and seeing how he compares against, say, Pete Maravich in 75, 76. So you can, what I like are these era adjusted numbers that get that now you can start looking at apples to apples versus apples and oranges. So that makes it fun. That's why I like the era adjusted OPS plus and ERA plus for baseball. Uh, because if we look at the eras, I'll give you an example how eras change. You want to talk about available rebounds. You look at somebody's rebound numbers without figuring era rebound rates. Some of those numbers back in the day where people are, grabbing 1,000 rebounds in a season. You can have a season later on where if you grabbed 800, it's a lot higher rebound rate than thousands were back then because you got a lot less available. So we look at rebounds per game. If we're back here in the early 60s, I don't know if anybody can see this. I might bump it up a little bit. Well, that's a little too much. You can go back into here where we've got some crazy rebound rates. Is AP my line? Where you've got, 66 rebounds available per game in the 60s because everybody was chucking up tons of shots and missing a bunch back then. You get down in here in the 80s, you've only got 43 available to grab on average in a game. So another player that stands out, if you look at the rate that Rodman was able to grab rebounds in this era, um, can't just apples and oranges when you're comparing. So you got to know what era they came through as far as the rebound numbers. Same thing about field goal percentage, average field goal percentage back in some of these things. That gets a little bit higher in the 80s. So all important stuff when we're trying to get a good even comparison of players across eras. What is up, MV? MV is in the house. MV, I came and talked about, I'm reading stuff on the, I haven't been around in a while. I'm reading stuff on, people can't find a file. And I posted a file yesterday under the Shanks Bingo Draft League, and I posted another one today. Um, and just trying to cover, I'm still missing the majority of people's managers' files. I've had a few send them to me. You're one of them. I don't know who to cut down to it. I know Big Clue set a deadline to for the other night, and if not, we'll just let the I know I haven't been around, but I'm ready to roll too. But I'm entertaining myself in my free time now. I'm kind of done. I'm tired of baseball. I'm excited to play some of the baseball games when the league starts, where I can start broadcasting and come on and do a couple games. That I'm looking forward to. But all of the other, I think I've just burnt myself out. I've been so knee deep in baseball projects that now I'm going to find my um, kicks out of going into the basketball side of things. So MV, I don't know if you might be interested in this at some point, but this is what I was talking about the other day. I've got, let me go to my database. I've got 10 built in the game to see them, but these players that are in here have all been adjusted to the season that they're shown for, and their stats are based on their best 3 years in their careers picked by me. And then I'm creating cards for them. And my goal here is to have an ultimate league where you have an all-time greats league based on their best 3 years. It'd be a fun draft league project or whatever. So this will be what I work on as my next passion, with a little bit of a break to keep baseball from being so overwhelming. And then I can just focus on the Shanks League and playing some games. Did it for 5 years, creating players and team. And MV, I don't know if you have. I didn't know you were such a basketball fan. Here's what I have, and if you're interested, I can get them to you. I have my basketball 5 year franchise file, just like I did with baseball and football. These are the teams right here. I've also got, if you're into certain eras of basketball, I have the 1970s franchise best. In fact, I can look at my sheet and tell you what the. Let me pull my sheet over here. See all my. So this would have been okay. So my 1970s file, here were my rosters. What I did is I took their best 3 straight years averaged for the 70s file. That's what I use there. And this would be it. So here's a 1970s file. Here's the Lakers, guaranteed. They've got Jabbar here, 75, 76, 77. And MV is a big college greats fan, he says. So I have one for the 70s and 80s. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just favoring basketball right now for some reason. So if we look at, let's take a look at, let me redo because I've run the stats in here. Do salaries. Boom. Salaries. Let's take a look at the salaries of the 10 players that I have in here. Gotta go league top player salaries. What do we got? Larry Bird stands out. Yeah, that's the problem I have, Mick, is I spend more time in the projects and I don't lift my head up and go play the games. That's what I'm looking forward to, like in the Shanks, is actually getting my ballpark set in that, and actually the gameplay's been fun in doing some of those. But yeah, here's the salaries based on boy, Larry Bird's is quite big, and I know why, because I did the numbers because of his all around value. So if I take a look at Larry Bird here, 7 assists per game, almost 10 rebounds a game, high above 500 field goal percentage, can shoot threes, high free throw percentage. So I know that the overall rating, I'm trying to think where his overall rating is, right down here at 9.1 is one of the reasons why that value's there. Defense, he's got decent defense, can force turnovers. So it's kind of interesting to see how the game will rate the players. And let's go into a modify. Here's Dr. J. He's based in 78, so he got a little bit subdued because one of his years is the ABA year, and when that pace of play and some of those numbers get, I guess, what is it? I'm trying to think. Shoehorned is what I'll call it. Get shoehorned into 1978. Some players will get a little bit of reduction, but if we took him and went him back and played in the ABA, it'll adjust itself back. So got all of his good stuff here, all of his ratings. And I'm just taking a peek here. This is another place I could go and turn on allow stat editing and edit the stats right straight from here. But anyway, having fun. A lot of similarities with how you card players in all of Action's game, but then there's also some uniqueness to how you build players, how you can tweak them, how you generate stats. Basketball is fun because there are missing stats for certain years. There are some websites that try to estimate those and apply them to modern basketball. Action PC goes into their own estimation for years where there weren't turnovers or steals or blocks. So that's available. And then I've been able to add that into my era data. So if we take a look at the last, no, I think 77 for turnovers. So if we take a look at 77 on turnovers, I'll give you a little example behind the scenes. This is where a lot of the computation comes. You can see right here that turnovers now, and a lot of it you can see right away when they started letting people carry the ball, which is really starting in, it's basically Magic. Once Magic and then later Jordan took it to a new level, came in, you can start seeing a trend where there's less turnovers. Why? Because they ain't calling carries and all that stuff. Turnovers have been pretty consistent, but they don't, you can just see turnovers coming down. Is it because everybody's better with the ball? No, I don't. I just think they let them do more manipulation with what used to be a carry. If you ever watch some old stuff from the 60s and 70s, everybody's hand, you could only get so far to the side of a basketball before they would call that. Now, people have got their hand under it, over it, they do whatever they want, can take 3 or 4 steps. So a lot of these turnovers here, 77, this is the first year it's actual. Um, Steals and all that are coming back to about 73, I think it is, when those come in. So you'll start seeing these would be estimated, and you'll take some known numbers around here, and then they'll just go what I call pace of play numbers. So you can look at how how much pace of play activity there was to get a good estimate of how that would have affected turnovers. If you've got 20 turnovers per game when they're putting up, when you've got this many assists going on and this many shots being thrown in the air, and there's some other things there for what I call pace of play, then you can kind of extrapolate that out, and you can see back here those numbers when the pace of play was really high here in 61, 60, those areas. You can see that the average turnovers per game are about 24, 25 versus a modern one with about 14. Yeah, less drive, less turnovers, exactly. And so anyway, have a blast with this. So there are some numbers that I'll get in here and crunch with when I'm creating these, right? And I've got a couple places where I'll go. You can see I still haven't got numbers worked out for some of these players that I haven't built yet. So right here for Elgin Baylor, I'm still going to have to work out the percentage of offensive rebounds per total, the TO and all that kind of stuff. But I'll go out here and do a lot of computation here, get all my sources, average it out, do the pace of play. For a good example right here is Tiny Archibald. So I feel pretty confident coming up with 334 turnovers based on this, even though none of these years had the turnover data, because there are years, for example, 77, 78, you can take some of the years where you have turnover data, divide it by minutes per play, but then you got to look at how many field goals and assists. In other words, how active they were in those years. And then once you find out the game per average for the years you do know, then you can adjust it for pace of play. And a lot of times when they're heaving more shots and they're involved in more of the offense and they're all that good stuff. Oh, put it in Discord, MV. Only I can solve. Put it in Discord. Let me read it. Maybe I can solve it while I'm here just killing time. Call it the killing time talking basketball. So here's some of the players that when one comes to mind, I just pop them in my head and start crunching some of the numbers. It is easier with the newer ones because I don't have to really crunch a lot. I can just, all the numbers are there. I'm not having to go and extrapolate out stuff and figure out fill in some of the missing data on turnovers and steals and blocks. Beatles, what's up? Had to come on, Beatles, because MV, help Beatles find the file. Shanks Bingo Draft League channel under the Geek Squad. I had a file yesterday, and then I put a new one today that had somebody's I forgot about. But we're missing the majority of the league is missing having having their teams cut down. So I'm ready to roll and start playing some games once we get the green light ready to go. But just talk some of that earlier, Beatles. I'm back and forth now. I've got my basketball stuff I'm going to be working on. This has been fun so far. I got some photos I'm doing for him. Just getting started on the all-time greats 3 best year. Let me pull up the baseball game because MV's going to have some question he claims only I can answer. So we will see. Interestingly enough, if Lawrence watches this, I did a replay, and Hawaii used to just kill it, and they haven't been. So what I did is I made a backup copy, and I took Lawrence's manager file out and let the computer do its thing, and he rose because he was sending me a message saying, "Hey, I think I sent you a file, and they used to do better when the manager controlled them." And sure enough, for whatever reason, they did. So I did a test today, and this is what the test came out with right here. And it was different. And this time he was right up near the top. Yeah, it's on. So we're not doing exhibition games. No, I thought I had. I mean, I don't know what the plan is. I just have been I've been busy at work. I can't this last week's been crazy busy at work. But I had done some exhibitions. I can do some more. I was just wondering, like at some point, people got to tell us who their 25 are and have they done enough testing where they want to send a manager file with lineups. I mean, some people have, but at what point do we set a deadline for that to happen? And I think MV's done exhibition games. Yeah, I had a file yesterday and I just posted one today that has a couple changes that people have given me that weren't in that original one. Wow, that's a lot of doubles here. This guy's pretty good. So all of these, I know Clue, I don't know if Big Clue's on here. Clue, I don't have a, unless I've missed it somewhere, I don't have a manager file from Clue or to know which five to deactivate. I think I've only really got mine in there. I think Hawaii had them and I pulled them out. Robbie's only got 29 players because he's got an illegal pick. So let me go back here. League discussion. Robbie, trying to figure out where I put that one. Might be in Shanks Bingo League. Robbie's only got 29 players because he picked a Negro League player, thinking he was a major league player for like 1925 or something. So he still has one more pick. Let's see. I'm just looking through here to see if I've missed any of the picks for everybody. Oh, it's D Scott stuff. I think I'm pretty good on that. So hopefully I'm catching up. But yeah, I'm happy when hey Arnold, I'm happy to get going and play stuff. Not sure if I'm doing something wrong for Evans. What do you want to do, MV? I had you at 53, and I think you had me set you back to 55. So if I go to your team, yeah, I got you back in 55. I thought you were good with 53 being more neutral as far as the settings, but that last message I got from you said 55, so I put you back to 55. And for some reason, I can't move from 55 back to 53. Well, here's what I do. I go right here. This is the one thing you got to remember. Go right here to 53, click that, assign team to year. Don't touch the one that says players or setting it to where they come from. This is where you could make some bad things happen and it changes where the game thinks your players came from. But these top ones that don't have the scary asterisk, just hit year, boom. Now you're done. We can exit out, go do stuff. We come back and double check your team, modify team. Now you're in 53 EBITs. So as soon as you flip over to whatever year you want, boom, you hit assign team and it'll move them over to that one. Yeah, now you could, yeah. So if you're screwing around over here and you're like, I want to put them in Crosley, then you hit this, assign them to that park, boom. It's whatever's highlighted. 53 Crosley. Now I did it. Now we'll back out. Now I got you in 53 Crosley. So if I come back in here, MV, now you're at 53 Crosley. So now I can put you back at Ebbets. Ebbets Field, assign team to park, done. This one, have to make sure that you hit that. If it's not, it's going to be whatever it's highlighted, but if you're moving around and you select a different one, assign it. Sign the year independently. Aaron is here. Hey, hey, hey. MV, here's what I'm going to say. If I've got something screwed up, I've had many people tell me this is very true. I always start back with me and try to eliminate operator error, which is at least 75% of it typically. I forgot to hit something, or I thought I did and I didn't. So we got MV at 53. You tell me, MV, do you want to keep it at 53? I'm good with that. I can move you back from 53 to 54. Easy, easy, easy. Well, yes, sometimes those run times I think are me and my impatience. I think I've caused them because it may be some bug in the game, but when I'm trying to click buttons when it's not my green light or turn to click it, I do think that those, the majority of the time, have been where we've had those disconnection errors. The other thing I ran into, now this was interesting, a little tip I trick, a little trick here that I'll offer as a tip. Let's see, MV's back and forth, 53, 54, MV. Come on, make up your mind, man. Okay, here we got you. 55, you're good. So one of the things I found out, I got the new football game and basketball game, and I could not get them to run. I was getting like a runtime error. And you know what I found out? On my old computer, I used to, because my D drive was bigger, I changed my DK Sports data, all that stuff that keeps all the game seasons and all that stuff that you don't need to redo every year, right? I had that all in my D drive. Then when I came over to load in the new basketball, I couldn't get it to load because all of the games have this right now. If you see down here, this convenient recent files. Well, on my, for the game, the recent files were pointing to different locations. So if you ever try to do a new one like I did on a new computer and it's like, it won't start, if you go into your game folder, this may not be there because I deleted it, but let's see. So I have all my stuff over here now. So I go into where my game was. I came over here to basketball 2022 and it wouldn't fire up. And the reason is it was looking, because it always loads up with the last season you were using. So I came over here and I had a recent list here. I just made it go away. That makes sense. Um, Baseball. I'm trying to think. Now I can't find. I think I got rid of them. There was some recent like folder here, and once I got rid of them, I could load the games. Hey, Big Clues here. I'll tell you what's shaking Big Clue. Uh, right here. Big Clue's laying down ultimatums for Saturday night, and I've got a 30-man um, roster. That's what's shaking Big Clue. Yeah, let's hope Manchester isn't an elementary school or something. We'll be in trouble there, MV. Well, let's just see what happens right here. Let's go back to the folder I have. And while we're talking, let's run another one of these tests. See, let me make sure I've got Manchester, 1955 Ebbets, Manchester. Here is your rotation, Manchester. Is this what you want? Let's take a look. Let's see how Manchester does now that they have to have some rules on, who was it? Hecker. Do fit. Oh my gosh, this guy. 53 Ebbets. Okay, let's run. Let's run a sim while we're chatting here. See what's going on. And then I will get clues. Oh, wait a second. Let's get clues in here. So who do we got? Clue. Quinn, Lever, Gore, Lever. Quinn, Gore, Hemus, and Wilson. Okay, he's it. Why do I keep hitting the wrong buttons? And just like that, big clue is legal. Who knew? Jack Taylor inactive for clue. I don't think uh, I don't think he's on the inactives. Nice try, MV. Appreciate your suggestion. So here we go. Now let's run this a little test. You almost got me, MV. My brain's deep in thought, so let's take a peek on this and see. Hey, is Beatles? I'd like to know if Beatles is on here. Where? How is that PS5 and MLB The Show working? That would be nice to hear. Now, this is the Hawaii file where Lawrence sent the manager file, and his team went from winning almost every time to middle of the pack. So he sent me a private note and said, "Hey, maybe I screwed up. Let's let the computer set my things again." So I made another copy of a file called the test where I was testing that out, and he was like 8 games out of first. So, in the first run, a lot of us hadn't tweaked ours. So maybe he looked better. We got ours tweaked. He looked a little worse. He tried to come in. So, this is like a moving target all the time. As other people do their tweaks and then trying to figure out which ones will have the best impact for you. I went and deactivated some people that I was having a hard time figuring out who my 5 were. So this will be a good test to see how if I selected the right 5. MV is loving the logos. I don't know if anybody noticed, but I applied here for our league logos down at the bottom. I put in that one that everybody voted on that Beatles did. I put it in the game yesterday. So what do we got here? Jersey's off to a raring start. You know what, Big Clue? You're probably running the file where Lawrence for Hawaii did. You probably. I don't know if you've got the most recent one where he didn't have. You might have the original one. But I'm anxious to see how this one does because this has his changes on it. And Badlands, I've got to do some stuff to help Badlands team out there. I've got to pick his who to deactivate on that team, and then now that I've made a couple changes just to kind of help PQ out because I know he is headed out for the next week or so entertaining guests and that, so he may not be around. See what's happening. Man, Jersey's taking a commanding lead. Is this? Oh, we've passed June. Let's see what happened. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see because this is a lot of variation from the last one I ran. Well, let me tell you what happened to Des Moines. I finally, Rob Tomlinson, who's in the league, pinged me and I forgot to. So I have added this morning. I was able to add his manager file. I might have yesterday, but I verified that it's got his manager file in there. So maybe he's thrown a little magic into the sauce here. Wow, something's wrong. Jersey's running away with it. I'm gonna have to do another one immediately after this just to verify this being some kind of a fluke. Just doesn't seem to be Jersey should have this big of a lead. Yet Toad Ramsey's leading in K's big clue because he pitches every other day. He's struck out 320 in 1,000 innings pitched. There's Guy Hecker for Manchester. Hmm. Oh, you are requiring big clue, and if they don't get the rest, they take a depreciation in their effectiveness. Somebody can choose to ignore the rest and play them tired, but they're at a diminished capacity. So it's definitely not an advantage to have somebody in there tired. And that would depend on how they've got their manager set up to back that up if they're not watching it. Wow, Jersey's off and running, huh? It's a pretty tight race with the rest of the league's pretty competitive. I got to get PQ bumped up a little bit. Wow, look at this. What a fiasco. Let's see how this turned out here. Let's go take a look at this Jersey team. Put them on replay stats. There's their rotation. There's at bats, right? Well, we see George Brett's getting a full season of at bats, which is kind of nice. But there's your main folks in there. Willie Wells, interestingly enough, at the shortstop. Monty Irvin is off and rolling, I guess, at shortstop, or no, or Dick Bartell. And Willie Wells, as good as he is, isn't the shortstop. So let's look at saved lineups. Yeah. your saved lineup has a hole in it, and the manager's looks like it's stuck on some weird lineups. Uh, you're stuck on stuff you didn't want, and you did really well. So I don't know how you want me to approach this, Big Clue. This is why there's a hole. So if we go one versus left, one versus right, and who do you want in there, Clue? Do you want is Wells your shortstop? Because if we put Wells there, where he should have been, oh, that's why it's empty. And MV, what's going on with this guy? The pitcher that you abused to death, which is the usage guy, Hecker. So let's take a look at Hecker. So he pitched once he got over 152 innings, he'll start being a penalty for you. So it wasn't like the abuse the last time. So interesting here. So let's go to Badlands. That's what I want to do here. Oh, this lineup. Hmm. Yeah, I'll have to adjust PQs. I've got a few instructions, but might be overriding some of that stuff to get them up. Robbie is like, you guys thought I was AWOL. We're gonna have to shoot some. Hopefully, Robbie will shoot a flare gun off somewhere. He'll pop up from somewhere because he's pretty much AWOL with this team. Um, Des Moines got their stuff set. So here's what I want to do. Let's take a look at, boy, Oscar Charleston, All Stars here. Jersey, Chase Utley representing Jersey. That was a huge blowout win. So let's see if that can be repeated. Do it again. Do it one more time. And there goes Hawaii. There's going to be interesting to see some of the variation for sure. Oh, MV's trying to bring him down so that he doesn't run into that usage problem. I see. Just put the curse on Jersey. Of course, I don't know. You tell me, Big Clue. Have you ever seen your team jump out? That was just a crazy year there for you, winning the division by 15 games. Oh, there's Manchester. Isn't that June? Get another little test here before I get to run. So let's see how this one turns out. MV will run a test on his later. Yeah, perfect. I'm gonna probably wait and post, even though I made big clues changes here, MV. I'll probably wait and post another one tomorrow to see if anybody else. I'm gonna go do PQs because he sent me a list of stuff, make sure his is right. So I'll probably wait and do another update tomorrow, just taking into account what clues inactives were, and then double check PQ and see if anybody else sends me any of their activations. I can incorporate it. Yeah, it is a good sign clue. That's what I've liked to see. I like seeing a variation going back and forth because it's going to make it much less predictable as we go week by week and have some good key matchups. Have to look at Toad Ramsey for the North Sound uh, team for D. Scott because that guy is just he's a monster. But I think he had like 67 games started and 66 complete games. So Louis Tiant and up there for Badlands. Badlands has got Robbie down into the cellar. Mudville's up there in the top half. Sure, Robbie will be glad to know this big clue that we finally figured out a way to get his team to the bottom. I think Dwight Gooden's doing all right. I think Toad Ramsey is kind of average at best, but he just eats a ton of innings up. Wonder what the effect of this Marichal Koufax trade has done for you, MV. Have you come out on the top end of that? Maybe you ought to take a peek. Koufax doesn't fit me. Koufax fits any team, MV. I don't know what kind of culture you've got in the clubhouse over there. But yeah, Marshall's a good pick too. I think a pitching staff would be. He's not good enough. Um, those pitchers I wouldn't mind having on my roster too. And just so you know, MV, I think Walter Johnson would be in the same circumstance. So I wouldn't even, if you ever get in a future draft, I would avoid Walter Johnson too because I think he's going to fall in line with the issues you've seen with Cy Young and Koufax. So just a word to the wise there. Pete Alexander be another one MV. You probably don't want to go after him. Save yourself some grief. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen my team win 100 and some games like that. It's weird. Another runaway. So, ooh, Joe Morgan got injured at the end of the season there. Let's take a look at Juan Marichal. Nah, 4.9. Who's got Koufax? Uh, okay, folks. Koufax is not even starting. So let's do this. Doesn't even know he's on the team. Toad Ramsey started 66 games. Here we go. Wasn't even pitching. So I wanted to compare the two. There we go. Jersey, what are we seeing for Jersey over here? Let's take a look at batters, replay stats, at bats. There we go. Now we got Willie Wells batted over 300. So that seemed to have stuck. That's looking good. Mm, okay, okay. There's something bothering me here about this lineup right here, which is this. Yeah, there's a good point. He's got him in left field, and he should be right field. So here's what I'm going to do. We're gonna let the computer manager take over PQ's team because if PQ's let's get this thing right, shall we? Let's take a look at the replay stats on Rose. I'm interested to see out of position. He's going to bump to. Let's see. He's going to go left field 9. He's going to drop. He'll be playing a 2 range, so he is going to be diminished. So let's take a look. Um, yeah, he lost him about 14 runs scored playing out of position there. Who's he got in center? Yeah, this is. I'm just gonna run. I'm gonna run his like that. See what this team has. At least run some default managers on some of these teams down at the bottom here. Well, let's see. Yeah, there is a great one going. Great sale going. So let me take a look at. I don't know if we've done it with Mudville. Okay, guess one more. I've just got to know. So we've seen quite a variation right here. What are you talking about? 60 EPC. You're talking about giving him a permanent EPC, meaning maximum on 60 is what I think you're saying. Got it? We'll see what happens there. We ran a couple. There's some crazy lineups for some of those teams, but we ran it on Mudville, Robbie's, PQ. So we're letting the doing it by player quality and letting the manager try to put what it thinks is the best lineup. Let's see how this one turns out. Guaranteed more variation. Let's see if we get a different winner and if this changes us stuff on the bad end or on the bottom end of things. MV, that's exactly why I drafted him. The 89 season was surprising to me too. When I got 1989, I looked at him, I'm like, wow. Yeah, I needed to get some lucky years with pitchers, so I'm glad I finally got one. It can be helpful when you get good years for pitchers, especially if they're not Hall of Famers. Oh, Jersey's out running the show again. What's going on here? So, tons of variation we've seen so far. Look at Hawaii is really down in the dumps. But I should go back now that we're in this file and run the computer back on Hawaii because I think Lawrence was saying he outsmarted himself on this. Beatles, I went through and um, big clue. A big clue. Isn't that pretty much what you would call baseball reference? Are you reinventing the wheel again? A lot of variation, which is going to be great for replay potential, and we won't know. Like when we get ready to start the league for sure, we're not going to have really a good. It's not like we've run this and we're coming out with some very where we know who's going to win every time or who's even going to be last. I mean, look at this. It's just due to I think it's just normal variation. I mean, who's facing who? Yeah, clue. So let's see how this one turns out. I may do some more. I may come on this weekend if I get a chance and maybe do a couple more tests because this one still has the. I think Lawrence Hawaii might do a little bit better if I take it back to the computer generator one. I think Robbie might be somewhere. Have to shoot a. He's got to shoot a flare off to get rescued from somewhere, but he's been pretty much AWOL from any correspondence over Howie Shanks League, which might serve him well because I just ran the computer manager on his team, and all of a sudden he's off and running. So heck yeah, Kovacs is doing well. He just needed to change his scenery and get out of that um, troubled dugout he was in over there in West Virginia. I wanted to do a comparison here on Marichal and Koufax to see who has the better year. Yeah, he's, I don't know. All right, so here we're moving away. It looks like we've had some wins where it's been what? Some pretty good. So Jersey's back out with a big lead right now. Hawaii, that we were worried about it a minute ago, just came running up. This time it's like a nice battle in between second and ninth, but Badlands is Jersey's outrunning and Badlands is really bad. And Manchester's right about where they should be. MV, it's that potent bad dugout chemistry you've got over there. It's doing so well because I ran the computer manager on it based on player quality. I don't think it had ever been set. Nobody, Robbie's AWOL. Nobody's even given this team attention, or nobody's even compared to ping me or do anything because they're upset at something. Yeah, Clue. I fixed you. I put Willie Wells back in. That's it. Didn't show up in the last sim, but you had who? Bartell and somebody else rotating in there at shortstop. And once Willie Wells is back in, your team's even tougher. Look, Cleveland had been down. Now they're up. That's six teams at 500 or above, which is really, yeah, great variation. But what I want to see is see what we got with Manchester. Manchester, we have Marshall with a 6.02 ERA. And then if we go over here to, well, hey, Koufax didn't do great, but he sure did a little bit better than that. So I have to take a look at this cool pop. Pete Rose. Mm, got no Aaron Judge. Hmm. I'll have to look at that for him. He's got some players that should be playing. Yeah. So if I go into Badlands, maybe I ought to just treat this like it's my team and set it up. One versus right. Mm, and left field. Why is this? Okay. I got to do one more before I go. It's just too tempting. Well, we already have Beatles. We gotta, but we just need to know who we would deactivate. So off your team. So I might take a look at how the computer played them. Like if you look at here, innings pitched. Chapman's okay. You're gonna need some pitchers. We'd take a look at how the computer's not playing people, and these would probably be the ones that we would. Although Keeler might be in there. I might take a look at your team and set it up a little bit better. Like Pep Young, I think we can say inactive. But look at this. The computer here, we've got Cobb and Mike Bordick down here. Hit Carpenter. Yeah, this guy needs to be sent home right here. Abaticio. Um, got to shut one more down for you here. How many catchers do you have? Swartwood. Let's run this one now. Whoops. Let's see what your main lineup versus lefties is. Here's what I would say. Let's try this way. Mm. Well, that's the problem. You got Cobbin right. You could play him out a position in center. Da, 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 da. Let's just get Cobbin right. Let's try that. do another one. And let me check some. All right. Well, here's what I'm going to do. I may run another test later. I'm going to have to head out now, but I'd say have some fun with the um, testing. Tweak it, have fun, and let's see what happens. So I'm going to try to come on sometime this weekend. We'll see if I can. But otherwise, have fun with that latest file I posted. I'm going to hang on to this one and play around and wait to see if some other uh, people. Oh, you know what I could do? Since we have this set up, this is the current state. Let me just do this. I'm just going to call it, change the name. I'll just call it Shanks Bingo and put today's dates on it. And then I'm going to post it so we can play with this. Is the most current one. So if everybody wants to play it, so it's going in Baseball Geek Squad under the Shanks Bingo channel. And I'm going to pop this one in here now. This is, I'll call it most updated file. There it is. So going to head out, have some fun, everybody playing with that one, run some tests with that one and see what it looks like. And I think we may be getting close. Yeah, do an exhibition game tonight with some of the team's Beatles. Have fun with that. Yeah, and we'll see what we can come up with. And yeah, those that need to tweak your manager file or your inactive is great. And then if we don't hear from people by tomorrow night or Sunday or whatever, we can just make the decisions for Robbie and PQ and the rest. So sounds good.